Well, without further ado, I'd like to bring on Miss McKenzie Kurtz, star of Broadway's Frozen. Hi, McKenzie.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, great. This is going to be so much fun.
I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
We have lots of registrants with lots of questions. We have 102 people signed up for 100 seats, so we got a packed house today. Lots of people want to know how to get to Broadway and how you did it.
I love it. I love it. I'm very excited.
So I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your path, your journey, where you started, how you got there. By the way, attendees, there's a Q&A box. If you have a question, don't type it in the chat. Type it in the Q&A box, okay? And we will see your questions there. All righty. Take it away, McKenzie.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'll just tell you a little bit about myself and my background. I'm from here, Milton. I'm home right now in Milton, Georgia. So I grew up in Georgia, was born and raised here. And I started doing theater at a pretty early age. I started when I was, I think, around like 8 years old. First, I was interested more so in the singing aspect of it. I was singing a lot of Hilary Duff and Disney when I was young and wanted to get into voice lessons. So I started singing first. And then my parents kind of realized how just outgoing I was, and people were like, you should put her in an acting class. Like, she could be great doing shows. And so they did. And when I was 8 years old, I started doing community theater with some of the other kids around town that did it. And my first show I ever did was Beauty and the Beast Jr. I was Mrs. Potts.
Wonderful.
Oh yeah, so keeping with the Disney theme. So that was how I kind of got started, and I fell in love with it right away.
And what were some of the groups that you worked with as a young singer and young performer in the Atlanta area?
Yeah, so I started out at, it was called Off-Broadway Dance, but now it's called Off-Broadway Children's Theater, which is, it's in the Crabapple area, Alpharetta, I want to, not Roswell, like Alpharetta Milton area is where that is now, and they relocated since I went there. But the same owners are still there, and they're still doing shows, and they're a great theater group. And they were always super, super kind to me. And I did a lot of community theater stuff there, and I did a lot of dance classes there when I was just starting out. Nice. So that's where I kind of started. And then continued to do, I kind of moved around a lot. I didn't really want to, I wanted to just get as much training as I could from different teachers, different schools. So I did CYT, Christian Youth Theater, for a little while. I did, I was at RISPA for a minute. I did Atlanta Workshop Players. So I was hopping all around and just, trying to do as much theater as I could. I know, oh gosh, yeah. I'm getting confused with different shows and different companies now. I'm like, what did I do? But yeah, so that's how that kind of started. And then I really wanted to go to a high school with a good theater program. And for a while, I looked into going to Pebblebrook High School, which is a magnet school for musical theater and the arts. And I ended up not going there, and I ended up going to the school that I was already districted for, which was Milton High School. And they weren't a theater school, but they ended up having one of the best theater programs like in the state. And we had so much success with going to like one act competitions, and we went to the Georgia Theater Conference and went to the Southeastern Theater Conference. So I did every single show basically possible at Milton, and I had some incredible teachers there. There was even a circ program at Milton High School. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with that, but that was super crazy. And my younger sister also went there, and she was like a big Cirque person. I tried it for 1 year, and then I was like, there's no way. I can't do this. It's too
I've
chaotic.
had a couple of students who were in that program,
Oh,
and I'm
really?
like, you are kidding. You're up there on,
It's
ropes
nuts.
twirling around.
I
Yikes.
know.
In high
It's
school. Wow.
in high
It's
school.
awesome.
It's so awesome. And so,
Yes.
yeah, the experience I had there was, I mean, I just think so highly of it. It was great. It was fantastic. So, yeah, so did a lot of shows there. And I actually, through doing my high school theater shows, my freshman year, I won Best Actress in the state of Georgia, and then went on to win Best Actress at the Georgia Theater Conference and then the Southeastern Theater Conference. And then I was nominated my freshman year for my first Schuler Hensley Award as Best Actress. I played Janet Vandegraff in The Drowsy Chaperone. And then the next year after that, I was nominated again for Best Actress for the Schuler Awards. And then I actually ended up winning. And so I don't know if people here are familiar with the Schuler Awards, but it's like basically this statewide musical theater competition where all high schools can submit their show to be judged. And then people get nominated for Best Actor, Best Actress, Supporting Actor, Supporting Actor. It's kind of like the Tonys, but like high school theater level.
But
And then,
tough competition around here. Some
oh,
of these schools have
seriously,
amazing programs, amazing singers and actors, and to win
absolutely.
that or to even be nominated is quite something.
Yes,
That's
yes.
incredible.
Yeah. And so, yeah, the Georgia theater scene is just incredible. People,
Hmm.
my friends who are always shocked that are not from here are like, what is going on in Georgia? And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know. But so yeah, so then it's my sophomore year, I actually went on to win Best Actress, and then I went to the Jimmy Awards, which takes place in New York City, and basically all the Best Actor and Best Actress winners across the country go to New York to then compete for Best Actor and Best Actress again, and you like perform as your character that you won for. So that year I was the Lady of the Lake in Spamalot. And so I got to go do that in the city, which was super fun. And then because of that, I won a 6 week fully paid scholarship to the Carnegie Mellon pre-college program, which was so, so awesome. And I highly recommend to anyone who is looking to study musical theater or is interested in pursuing it professionally. I think it's an amazing summer program, pre-college summer program that you can go to. It's 6 weeks long,
Mm.
and I had like the time of my life. I loved it so much. There's also a college program at a University of Michigan, which is where I actually ended up going for school, called Impulse, which is another great pre-college program that I always like to recommend to people. But yeah, so I ended up going there the summer after my junior year. Yeah, that's right. And I'm like, is that right? Yeah, so then the next 2 years of high school, I was nominated again for Best Actress, and then I won again my senior year, and then ended up going back to the Jimmys again my senior year, which was really cool and a great way to end my high school experience.
Yes.
So yeah, so then I did that, and kind of by my senior year, I was looking forward to going to college, and I was going through the whole college audition process, which is a whole crazy thing. I don't know if anybody wants to hear anything about that. Please feel free to ask questions about that too.
We'd love
Um,
to. I bet we have a lot of people who are, 11th, 12th graders about
mhm.
to enter into that realm, and it's a tough couple of years for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. So,
Hmm.
I mean, I always tell people like it is never too early to start preparing. If you're here, you're a freshman, sophomore in high school. I I feel like I started preparing late. I started preparing kind of like end of my sophomore year, getting my rep together junior
Hmm.
year, and yeah, never too early to start building up your book for college auditions and picking some material that you really really like and you can just absolutely solidify and nail by the time you go in for your auditions. But yeah, I think I picked, I want to say, around 20 schools just to start with. I was like, these are the schools. I had some reach schools. I had some like my baseline, like, okay, I think I really could get in here. And then I had some safety schools. And then from that list, I think I narrowed it down to about 13, 12 because it's expensive to audition for all of these schools. And
Hmm.
if you have to factor in travel too, because sometimes people like to actually travel to the school to audition instead of going to Unifieds. And I don't know if everyone here knows what Unifieds is,
Can you
but
explain that just so
sure.
for
Yeah, yeah,
those who
yeah.
don't? Yeah, sure.
So Unifieds is essentially this kind of, I describe it as like a conference it takes place in New York City, and it also takes place in Chicago, and I believe there might be one in LA. I'm not 100% certain on that anymore, but it's basically kind of a week. I want to say they're there for like 2 or 3 weeks, and you can schedule basically a round of auditions that you can just knock out in like 3 or 4 days. So let's say 10 of the schools that you want to audition for are all at Unifieds. Like I went and I think I auditioned for about 8 schools at Unifieds in 3 days, in a span of 3 days. I was just there over the weekend, and I was like, boom, 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 boom. Good. Check it off the list. Great. Cause they're all right there in like the same 2 buildings. They're in like, I think it's like Ripley Greer, and they might be in Pearl too. So yeah, I highly recommend going to Unifieds, especially to save money, because flights are so expensive, you guys. Then you got to book a place to stay, because it's a whole ordeal. But another thing I do recommend though is if like maybe some of your top picks that you really desperately want to go get into, or you're very interested in, I also sometimes recommend, if you are able to travel to that school and maybe audition on site on campus. I did that for I think it was 3 schools that I picked, that I was like, I really just want to go and meet with some of the faculty, because a lot of times that they give you an option for when you come onto campus to audition, you get to have some meetings with people and kind of see how you gel and how you click, because a lot of times people don't even really take the time to really think about the fact that they are auditioning to be somewhere for 4 years or more of their life, right? So it's like you want to feel out the vibe of the campus, the vibe of the faculty, the department, maybe some of the other students there. Like I know when I went to Michigan and had my audition weekend, some of the current students there took me out like to look at the campus, showed me like the dance studios, and answered any and all questions I have. So that's also something I really recommend if you can do. It's so helpful, and it helped me know that I was like, oh, I absolutely want to go here, because I just fell in love with it as soon as I saw it. So yeah, so senior year, I was going through the college audition process, and then found out that I got into Michigan, which was one of my top picks, and I was very excited. So I ended up going to school there, and then I was there for 4 years, and I got some incredible training. The faculty is incredible. The entire department is just so talented. Everyone works so hard and is there to just get better, get great at what they love to do. So it was an amazing experience, incredible experience. And
Is that a really large program or a smaller program, or?
It's I would say it's kind of a mid-sized, because I know some schools they'll like have like 8 people in a class or 4 people in a class. I would say there's about an average of 20 people per class in the department, and sometimes I feel like maybe less, because sometimes people end up leaving too, like in the middle, and it just like doesn't work out. People decide they want to change majors. It's a whole thing. But I would say about 20. So it's a mid-size, because then I also know programs who take large classes, like a program like BOCO, I know takes like, I think like groups of like 40 people, 50 people, and that's like your entire class. So yeah, but so the department I think is mid-size, and then there's also the acting department, which is a separate department, but we kind of get to do some projects with them sometimes and work together on some student-run stuff. So yeah, and I loved the school because it also was it wasn't conservatory style, which conservatory style, for anyone who doesn't know, means you are studying music, theater, and dance all day, every day. That's all your classes consist of, which for some people are like, yes, give me that. That is my bread and butter. That's all I want to do. But for someone like me, who I love to write, I love history, I wanted to take other classes and experience, learn other things. And even though I wasn't minoring in anything, but I did have some friends who did do that, which is crazy. But I'm like,
A lot of
good
work.
for you. It is a lot of work, but I'm like, you go. Yeah, good for them. But yeah, so I wanted to be able to also have some academic classes that I could take along with my core musical theater classes. So I took around like, I think it was like 2 academic classes per semester that I would take along with all my musical theater stuff. So yeah, and then that's kind of how I towards I was pretty much in every uh, department show during my time there. I auditioned for every department show, and then so every semester I was busy doing like a main stage show or something like that. And then my senior year, I actually chose to opt out of auditioning because you're allowed to. Your senior year, you can choose to opt out. So I did not audition for the show second semester because I had signed with my agent and my manager the January of my senior year. So while I was still in school, I actually signed with an agent and manager, which is not very common because a lot of, why people go to a school like Michigan to study musical theater, or like CCM or NYU or Carnegie Mellon or these musical theater schools, is to do showcase at the end, which for those who don't know, showcase is basically where you go to New York with your class at the end of your 4 years and you perform in front of agents, managers, casting directors, basically all the professionals in New York will come to your showcase and see you. And then that's typically where you get the offers from agents and managers right after you graduate. So you can move to the city and then start auditioning. So I had actually been lucky enough to actually get a few opportunities to go and audition in New York for some shows before I graduated. And that was just through, I knew a casting director who sent me some stuff while I was still at school, and I would put stuff on tape. And then they would say, hey, we want you to come in and the room and audition. And so I only went when it was something that, I was like, okay, I would possibly take a break from school to do this. So I was in finals for Clueless, the musical, and I was in finals for Mean Girls for Regina George. And yeah, there's like a couple of things. But my senior year, I was actually in final callbacks for Mean Girls, and I had gone a couple times up to the city back and forth between Michigan and New York. And then while I was there, I met with who is the person who is currently my agent. And I really just ended up kind of like falling in love with him, and I loved everything he was about, and I felt really positive vibes from him, and I was like, I think this person really believes in me, and I chose to sign with him like right there on the spot. And I wanted to kind of get a head start auditioning and filming self-tapes while I was still in Ann Arbor. Just like, why not? I've already done all my I feel like I've had my Michigan experience, and I want to kind of start the ball rolling for any professional work that might come along. And then he introduced me to my manager at that same trip, and then I loved her, and then I signed with her right there on the spot too. So it was definitely not the normal situation, and it definitely made showcase for me very chill, which was nice because I didn't have the added stress of, oh my gosh, like, is there an agent or a manager here that's going to want to sign me? And, I already had my people. And so I felt really good about it, and I was very excited. So I signed with them in January, and then all through my final semester of school, I was taping. I must have done like 100 tapes, and a couple callbacks resulted from that, but nothing crazy. But I was like, at least I'm learning, because taping is like a whole other beast too. We have to
Let's talk a little bit about that process. So now a lot of the auditions are done primarily, or at least in the first phases, by tape, right?
Absolutely.
What are some recommendations about that?
Yeah. And that goes for college auditions too, because
that's right.
People have pre-screens first.
That's right.
And so it's really important, you guys, to learn how to create a professional, good quality with sound and visuals. Like, it's just gonna help you in the long run. I will tell you that right now. So I film a lot of stuff on my iPhone, but I have like the newest iPhone, and I know people probably tell you this, but I film everything horizontally. I have a tripod. If you guys have a ring light, like, use your lights, light yourself well, blank background, don't wear anything too distracting. And a lot of times I feel like they will give you details as to where they want you to be cropped, if it's like, torso up, or if they want full body shot, whatever. So yeah, make sure you heed those recommendations. Sure. But yeah, so I was just kind of perfecting the art of the self-tape. And I always recommend to kids too, you guys, like we're all stuck inside during quarantine. If you can, like print out a scene and film yourself. Look at how you look on film, because all my TV and film auditions, obviously, like you want to, yeah, I've noticed that I had a weird thing with my mouth that I would do where I would like one side would go further down the head, but I never knew that. And so I would literally film myself and then watch it back. And then, oh, I need to fix this. Oh, like when I'm acting on camera, because acting on camera is a completely different thing than, being on stage or, performing live. So yeah, I highly recommend anybody, you guys, why not? Like, what are we doing anyway? So, so I kind of perfected that my senior year. And then that summer, I ended up going to the Muni and I did a show there. And then I did a 29-hour reading at Williamstown Theater Festival. It was a new musical that's being created. It's in the works. And it's a 29-hour reading, for those who don't know, is kind of like a crash course. You learn this musical really fast and then you get up a lot of times with stands and you have the script and you have the score there with you and you perform it for an audience. And then the creative team gets to kind of see the response, and if like, oh, they think this is funny, oh, this works, this doesn't work. So that was a super cool experience and something that I love to do. It was a musical comedy, which is like my favorite thing to do ever. So that was a really good time. And then after that, I went home for a little bit, and to be honest, I was kind of having a bit of anxiety about making the move to the city. You know, and that's something I think we should speak about, because often it's like, which is great. People are like, oh, so excited to get to the city and audition. And, it's a really hard thing and it's a scary thing. And, at school, one of the best lessons that I took away that a professor would always tell us is that there are no guarantees. And this business is a hard business, but it is so rewarding. Like when you just have to be willing to put in the work and do your best, and that's all you can do. You do what's in your control. And so so that was in the back of my mind, and I was having some anxiety about it, and I was kind of begging my mom to see if I could stay for a couple more weeks. But eventually I made the move, and I moved there in September, and my agent and my manager were very happy about that. They were like, hurry up, girl, let's go, let's get you in the city, because they wanted me to have to stop taping. So I finally was in the city, and then I was going on a bunch of auditions, like hit the ground running, had like multiple auditions a week, sometimes multiple a day. I was running around. It was great. I felt, fulfilled just learning the audition, because the audition is your job. And that's something so like, if you don't hear anything else, hear this. Auditioning is your job. You just have to prepare. The only time I ever feel nervous or, freaking out about any kind of audition or performance is when I feel unprepared. So it's like, if you just take the time to do the work, prepare, and go in there with confidence, even if you're not feeling 100% confident, like fake it till you make it. I always say it. That is so real for me. That's your job. Like you go in and then it's up to them after that. It's out of your control. So I was doing the audition grind for like a little while, and then I had my first Frozen audition.
Back up just a little bit. Let me
Yeah.
talk about the audition grind. I mean, what's it like day after day? Like literally what happens?
For sure. So
You've learned a song, you've learned your monologue, you've rehearsed it, you've coached it. Okay, what's the audition like?
So it's pretty crazy. I mean, you would go in, like I remember I went in for this one. It was actually a TV film audition, so it was a couple scenes I had to learn. And I go in, and there's like 40 girls there, and they all look exactly like me. And I'm like, you hear people say that, and you hear people talk about it, but there's nothing like actually walking into a room and seeing like 40 girls or people that look exactly like you, and you're just like, wow, okay. So it's hard. It's really, you have to be mentally tough, because you can so easily then get in your head and you're like, how the heck am I going to be picked out of all of these people that are here? But you just have to literally, I literally call the audition grind. You are on a mission. You are grinding it out. You stay in the zone. Whenever I go to any audition, I always listen to music before I go in. I don't really socialize with people unless I see like a good friend, someone I know, I'll say hello. but it's just like, you're there to do a job. You're there to do work. And so you do it and you get it done, and then you leave and out of your brain. As hard as it is, you have to just wipe your hands of it. I did what I said I was going to do. I did my best. And now on to the next, because that's what it is. And so I would get calls about something, like my manager would call me and she'd be like, oh, they want to see you again for this. And I would literally be like, for what? Because I would try so hard to just put it out of my brain, which is, I mean, super helpful, because it's like, you can't dwell on that stuff. You just can't, because you'll drive yourself crazy. But yeah, so it's a grind. You know, you show up every day. And then I also was nannying right when I moved to the city, because it's like I had to make money. I'm paying for an apartment in the city now, which is pricey. So I would truly go to all these auditions as much as I could fit in before I had to pick up my kid from school at 3:00. And then I would be with him from 3 to 8:00, and then would like learn my sides on the train. And then the next morning, do it again. And that's just the life. And it's like, you have to, you know, choose to have this positive attitude. And it's hard because you hear no. And sometimes you don't even hear no. Sometimes you just don't even hear anything at all, which is even worse, because then you're like texting your manager and you're like, can you just call them and make sure like they don't want to see me? And then they're like, no, they don't want to see you. And you're like, okay, cool. But yeah, so it's just, you know, you have to be strong, and you have to just know what it's going to be and sign up for it and know what you're getting yourself into. Yeah. Does that help?
That's great. It's like you said, the job is the audition. If you did a good audition, you did a great job. Next.
Exactly.
Let it go, right? Yeah.
And even if you don't get that job, maybe like it was something random, like, oh, if she was 2 inches taller, she could get this job. But if you had a great audition, they will call you in for something else. They'll say, oh, remember that girl that was 2 inches too short for this last project? She's
right.
perfect for this. I can't even tell you how many times that has happened to me, where it's like, not right for you right now, but come in.
We remember you.
We want to see you for this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I did a good job in my audition, and I was still positive, and I didn't get bitter about the fact that they like didn't want to see me for this project. Like there's a million other ones that are coming down the line. So,
well, this brings up a good question, and that is the question of typecasting. A lot of people want to know. Well, you mentioned that you would go to an audition and there'd be 40 U's sitting there. Obviously, they're looking for a type, right?
Yeah.
I think some things are relaxing though in that regard on Broadway. Would you say?
Yes, for sure. Oh yeah. I mean, we're seeing it's incredible what we're seeing with the diversification.
Much more diversity
happening. It's been time. So that's incredible, but it is very still true that there is typecasting that goes on, and not even necessarily physically the way you look, but it's like, I know that I play maybe the quirky, bubbly type girl, like a Glinda or an Anna type, more than I can play the brooding, serious, you know, yeah, like an Idina Menzel or like a Jessica you know what I mean? Like it's all, you know, it's all, and there are people obviously like, I could do that, but are they going to cast me to do, you know, my niche? I have a niche. Everybody has the thing that they feel comfortable and feel best at doing, and that a lot of times you will get called in for, and casting directors and people start to know you as, oh, she's this type, he's this type or that type. And so a lot of times you'll be seeing the same people at auditions. There's this one girl who I roll in, and then she's already sitting there, and I'm like, hey girl, how you doing? Saw you yesterday. Good to see ya. So yeah, it's definitely a real thing.
Do you think that's a voice thing as well as a physical thing, like voice types?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like, I am not going to go in. I am not the big beltress that like some of my friends are. I am very much like in my mix and a soprano, and you know, and then I have friends who just can like belt the house down. And when people send you breakdowns, which are the things that your agent will send you when you get an audition, it will literally say vocal type for like a character's description. It'll say vocal type, soprano, alto, baritone. And so it's like we're only seeing people who can sing the notes that are on the page for this specific character, right? But it is pretty cool because, as you mentioned, like some of that is starting to change. Like Ryan Redman was the first female Olaf, so they changed that part around for her and changed some of the vocal parts and the stylings, which is, I think, super cool that that's happening, and people are starting to like branch out into what if we change this up. I mean, yeah. So I
Well, I
think
love that you mentioned mix because that, that's what we teach here and that's a healthy way to sing. But I know belting is a thing. So talk a little bit about belting and, I know everybody has their own definition of what is belt really, but what is it on Broadway?
it is. I mean, I am lucky enough that I get to witness one of the best belters I have ever seen, which is Sierra Renee, who plays Elsa. And she is a vocal powerhouse for sure. But, I think a lot of people, when they hear the word belting, they think of like full voice, sometimes unhealthy singing because it has that kind of connotation. And I think that is what happens a lot when people who aren't trained and don't have proper technique damage their voices when they try to belt these, the end of Defying Gravity or the end of Let
Hmm.
It Go or like these big Regina George numbers. But there is, I think, definitely a healthy way of belting. And I mean, I witness it every night when Sierra sings Let It Go and Monster, and it's incredible. So it's so important to you guys. Take lessons with Trisha and learn how to do that healthy belt. And if you can't, learn how to do that healthy mix. I live in my mix, and I live in my mix. And a lot of times, some people can't even tell if I'm mixing or if I'm belting because I try
Right.
to just get such a smooth transition between the two that people are like, "Are you belting that?" And which is great, which is something that you want to hear, right? Because it's like I just want to have smooth transitions in between all the registers of my voice. So yeah, it's so important to just have good technique and to take care of your voice.
So
Um,
let's talk about that a little bit. What is your routine for vocal care? Let's say you're doing what? How many shows a week do you do when you're up? Eight at least?
it shows a week, yeah.
At least. And so it's two shows a week on
So it actually just recently changed, but it's when I was in it, it was 2 shows Saturday, two
two
shows
shows.
Sunday.
Yep.
So we had 5 show weekends, which is crazy.
That's a lot of singing.
It is.
Yes.
So yeah, so I have to take really good care of myself. And that means drinking water all day, every day, staying hydrated, getting sleep, um, and even eating. And that's something I've, noticed. Like I have to eat something just to like wake my body up, and even with my voice like that helps wake my voice up, kind of something like light before a show that will fill me up enough that I have the energy to do the show, but not something that's gonna like sit in my stomach and make it impossible for me to do like a aerial cartwheel in Love Is an Open Door. So yeah, so but definitely before the show I have a full vocal warm up that I do, a lot of lip trills, scales, blowfish, like I do the and I'll normally do that for about 20. I do like a 20-minute warm up, light warm up, nothing crazy because I have a full show to
Right.
sing, a full like 2 hour marathon that's about to happen. But I warm up, I really just try to go through my entire range. I'll like go all the way up into the stratosphere and then come back down, warm everything up, warm my body up.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll typically do that. And I have like the voice memos on my phone from warm ups past that I like to, and I like to switch it up to certain days. I'll be feeling a little tired. So I want to do like a warm up that I know is going to soothe my vocal cords,
Right.
help me out. Some days I'll be feeling like really cold. So I'm like, I need to wake up. So I do some high energy warm ups. Like, yeah, it just depends on the day, but I can't stress enough how important it is for you guys to warm up your voices so you don't get any vocal damage.
How about after the show? Do you do a cool down type of routine as well?
Oh yeah, when
Hmm.
I'm getting my wig off after the show, I normally will I'll do like some humming. Again, the blowfish is like my best friend. and just like try to bring that larynx back down, just
Mm-hmm.
try to relax everything. And then I normally kind of just go home right after. And so, and I will like go out to the stage door, sign some stuff, but any interactions I have, I'm very much speaking in a different register than the Anna register. But yeah. So yeah, that's it. All goes into that.
You make a good point. It's when you're a singer, you're like a hothouse plant, a hothouse
For real.
flower.
For
You don't
real.
get to go to the after hours party.
No,
You
no,
have
no,
to
no.
go home and be quiet.
And
Sad but true.
eat like 6 pounds of pasta and then go to sleep. That's
Sleep.
pretty much what I
That's your
do.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. Which great. I don't mind.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, we did take a detour just as you were about to tell us about the Frozen audition. So let's get back
Yeah.
to that. How was that? Tell
For
us all
sure.
about it.
So I went in for my first Frozen audition, and it was just in front of like two of the creative team members, and I actually had a bad audition, and I did not feel good about it at all. And I was bummed. I was like, oh, this could have been so awesome. I just didn't feel good about it, and I got in my head about it, which happens. Like it totally happens, as hard as you try to kind of trick yourself and convince yourself that you are feeling confident and you're about to kill it, it's difficult. It is so difficult to do. But I went in there and didn't have a great audition, and I left. And then the next day, I actually was going to be a part of a concert called Women of Broadway, and it was basically a concert that featured a bunch of the composers and lyricists, female composers and lyricists of Broadway who were creating new work. And so I mentioned that I had done the Williamstown Theater Festival 29-hour reading. So the creators of that had asked me to come sing one of the songs from that show. And I was like, sure. And I show up, and I was the only woman who was not on Broadway. It was like Laura Benanti was there, Betsy Wolfe, and I was freaking out. I was like, why am I here right now? But so I sang the song. It was great. It was a lot of fun. It was a great time. And I wasn't aware, but Kristen Lopez, who wrote the music and lyrics to Frozen, was actually in the audience and saw me perform, and then contacted casting and said, who is this girl? Has she been in for Anna yet? And then they said, yeah, she actually was in. And then she said, okay, well, bring her back in. Like, I want her to have a work session, and I want her to have another audition. So,
That's amazing.
yeah.
I mean, wow.
Like, so, and that's just another lesson, you guys. Like, say yes to
To
anything and
everything.
everything. Like, if I hadn't said yes to participating in that concert, that never would have happened. I wouldn't be where I am today. So like, I'm so glad that I did. Yeah, just put yourself out there, get yourself as much exposure as possible, sing at open mic nights, film videos, post them on YouTube now. There's so much exposure, on the internet. But anyway, so I came back in, and I had a work session, and then I had another audition, and it like went all right. I was like, okay, I think this went well. And then they called me back again. They said, we want to see you in front of the whole team the next week. So I showed up not knowing if it was a final audition, or if it was, I didn't know if there was going to be 20 girls there or like two. I show up, and there were 6 girls there, including myself. And we were there all day, and they ended up cutting 3 girls in the middle of the day. And then it was just me and 2 others. And then we stayed till the end of the day. And then we all were kind of like, what does this mean? Like, are we, and they brought in Sierra to read with us. We had to dance, we had to sing, we had to do the whole shebang. And at the end of the day, there were about 40 people in the room, like reps from Disney. It was crazy. So they released us at the end of the day, and I felt good about what I did. Again, like I went in, I did my job, and I did
Mhm.
to the best of my ability, and I was prepared, and that's all you can do. And then I went home, and I was about to head out to go pick up my kid that I nanny from school when I got the call from my agent and manager, and they told me that I had gotten the part that same day. So yeah, it was a whirlwind. It was very quick. And then I started rehearsals in January, and then I made my debut in February.
Wow, that's quite a story.
Yeah. And here we are.
And here we are.
Yes, yes. So yeah, that's it. That's the whole shebang.
That is, like you said, do everything. Do everything. Get yourself out there, make relationships. One of the things I stress is, be nice to people. Don't be a diva, in the audition
Absolutely.
process. That I think that attitude thing is one of the things that gets people hired or not hired. And
Oh,
it's not even overt. It's like they can pick up on whether you're a team player or not, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I can't stress that enough how important it is that I even know people now who, like people who have bad reputations, and it hurts you so much because it is such a small world, it is such a small
Hmm.
industry. It's always just just be nice to everyone, be,
Everyone.
be professional, treat
Hmm.
everyone with respect and kindness, and say yes to projects that your friends are doing, because you just never know, like you never know what's going to happen. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about singing sick. So
Oh
let's,
yeah.
some singers have reputations for, canceling shows a lot, right?
Mhm.
And
Uh-huh.
uh, that's not a reputation you want to get. You want to get a reputation as being reliable, always there, able to deliver every time, right? How do you do that? What happens if you do get sick? Well, of course you have an understudy, but do
Yeah.
you really want to, you know,
Yeah, you want to make that money. You want to keep making your money and do your shows.
right?
Yeah, and so I mean, it all starts with just again, when you are doing 8 shows a week, when you're not even doing 8 shows a week, when you're doing your high school productions, take care of yourself. Drink water. Go on vocal rest. I don't talk after I do, like after I go home, I go to bed. I'm not on the phone calling my mom, calling my friends. I am lights out. I need to get at least 9 hours of sleep. I wake up, I have like a healthy breakfast. So it starts with taking care of yourself. Like that is, and just forming a routine. I feel helped me a lot because I mean, I only did, I think, 30 shows, but during those 30, I felt very strong and very healthy the entire time because I was just so on top of taking care of myself. Except in I actually made my debut sick, which so I'm glad you asked because I made my debut sick, which was pretty crazy and very stressful for me. As a singer, nobody wants to be sick singing on a sore throat or
Mm-mm.
singing on any kind of phlegm. Um, Things that I did to just kind of help myself out were as soon as I would wake up, I mean, again, drinking tons of water. As soon as I would wake up in the morning, I would go sit in the shower for 30 minutes, a steaming shower for 30 minutes. I know people have steamers,
Hmm.
like just staying moisturized. Um, and I had actual a sore throat, so I gargling sometimes with like light salt water can take the soreness out. That helps a lot. Vocal rest. And everybody has an abbreviated show. Everyone has a show that they know they can do when they're feeling under the weather. Sometimes you have to option down certain notes. Sometimes you don't sing certain things, or you make choices depending on the state that you're in. You then can kind of edit and your show, not to the point where you are like, that's not allowed and you can't do that, but to the point of you're feeling under the weather and you can still get through it, and you can, but you just have to take it easy. Like some days I'm like, you know what, I'm about to full voice this beginning of For the First Time in Forever, this ending note. And then sometimes I'm like, nope, I'm not feeling it today. I'm going to pop into my mix. I'm going to mix this. It's just, you have to be smart, and the more you know your voice, the easier time you will have singing on it when you are feeling under the weather or when you're feeling ill. But yeah, just take care of yourself and don't push. Don't push, because that will make things even worse. Like, you know, at a certain point, it's like, it stinks to have to call out, but it's like if it's a matter of you are going to cause damage to yourself and then make things 10 times worse, absolutely call out every time, because there's
Hmm.
no point in doing that when you could take one night off and then be good to go for the rest of the week. But instead you choose to do that night and then you push and then you're out for 3 days after that.
You blow
So
it out,
the
right?
better you know your body and the better you know your instrument, the easier time you will have.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Absolutely. Well, just as a reminder to our viewers, type in your questions in the Q&A here, and let's get to some of these questions. We've covered some of these already. Um, do you ever feel like the acting business is too overwhelming?
That's a good
That's
question.
a good question.
Um, so this is something I like to talk about a lot with my friends because it is an incredibly overwhelming business. It's definitely it's hard. We talked about that a little bit early on, and so I always tell people I think it's so important to have things outside of acting that you are really passionate about and that you make time for during your day, because a lot of times, doing it professionally, it's your job, but it's also your passion and it's what you love to do, and those can sometimes get wrapped up, and you can then your job becomes your life and your passion becomes work. And so I always think it's so important for people to have passions outside of theater or singing or dancing or whatever it is you guys want to do. I like to paint. I love to read. I love to spend time with my friends. Like, that is so important, to see people outside of the show that you're in and, have conversations. Again, when I talked about one of the biggest reasons I decided to go to the University of Michigan was because I had the opportunity to take classes outside of theater that I had interest in and that I really wanted to learn more about. So yeah, sometimes it does get overwhelming, but I think it's up to you whether or not, you let that kind of consume you. You can make the choices to uh, do different things and pursue different passions.
I think that's very, very healthy. Not having your whole self-esteem wrapped up in, did I get the role? Did I not get the role? Did I do a good show? Did I feel like I didn't do such a great, yeah, because that's a recipe for emotional disaster if you don't have any other ways of nurturing yourself. And
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people do fall into that trap as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you want to be a well-rounded person as well as a well-rounded performer. Okay. Do you know any performers on Broadway that started later in life, i.e., a career switch?
Ooh, good question. Um, I do. I mean, I have some friends that that kind of made the decision to start pursuing it in high school, because I know, a lot of kids will start really early on. I don't really know of anyone personally who, post college decided. No, that's a lie. I do know someone actually, who had a full other job and went to school for something else, but I think minored in musical theater, so they still kind of studied it and worked on their craft, but then ended up getting a different job outside of college, and then did some auditions, and then took a break and pursued a different career, and then came back and then had success later on in their life. So, that's rare.
Yeah.
I would say that is rare, but I do know someone who has had that experience. So,
So you pretty much have to know you're on that path at a young age and take those steps early.
I mean, it makes it easier for you, because the majority of people, I feel like, decide pretty early on that this is what they want to pursue, and everyone is working hard and everybody wants the same things, so it's like,
Mm-hmm.
the sooner you can start working on your craft and perfecting your craft, the better, I always say. So,
All right, let's see here. How important is the dance component on Broadway? We know the acting is important. We know the voice is really important. We talked about that in terms of typing. What about dancing? How important is it to be a great dancer?
so I mean, everyone's experience is different, but pretty much all Broadway performers, I would say, have had some form of dance training. So whether that's like beginner tap, or beginner jazz, but I always recommend to people, take a dance class if you want to pursue being in musical theater on Broadway. It's just a good idea. It's just, why not cover all of your bases? And personally, dance is my weakest link of the three: singing, dancing, and acting. So when I was in high school, I made sure to work extra hard at my dancing and go to more dance classes than I was doing like my acting classes, because I knew that area needed more work personally. And I don't consider myself like a dancer, but I mean, I have to be able to go to a dance call because 9 times out of 10, for any part on Broadway, you will have to go through some form of dance call. So it's good to get that experience in a dance class where you learn a combination, a short combination, and then you perform it in front of people because that's how things happen. You go in front of a room of people, they teach you a combination in like 15, 20 minutes, sometimes less. And then you have to go, boom, do it. 5, 6, 7, 8, go. So it's better to go into that, I think, with some form of experience, than not. Yeah. Was did I answer that?
Absolutely. And what kind of dance classes would you recommend? I know tap for sure, probably jazz.
I would definitely say a jazz class and a
Mhm.
ballet class just to get some of your core
Ballet?
technique. Oh yeah, just because it's that's where a lot of technique comes from, and that will just help you in all other areas of dance. But yeah, like take a jazz class, maybe even take a tap class. Normally that's only with a tap show that and if you're auditioning for a tap show, like you better know that you're about to have to go into a tap combination. Like it's just what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would definitely recommend.
Awesome. Here's a good question. How long do actors usually perform a specific role on Broadway? How long would you expect your run to be?
Well, I mean, it depends. There are no guarantees when it comes to shows. Shows can open and then they can close 4 months later if it's not a successful show. You never know. Um, but typically, like a kind of a long-standing running show, you'll audition and then you'll get the part, and a lot of times you will be offered a 6 month or a year-long contract, and then depending on, like, by the end of that 6 months, let's say you're gelling with the creative team, you're gelling with the company, the crew, everybody, and like things are great and the show is still continuing to go on, you may resign for another 6 months. It so depends on so many factors that are, again, out of your control. So it's just it could be like 2 months, it could be 3 years. I know someone who has been in the Phantom of the Opera for 20 years.
Wow.
Like it doesn't, it's all different. It's
That's job
so
security
yeah.
as much as you can get it in Broadway.
For
That's
real.
awesome.
For real,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and then you're back to that feeling of what's next, which I think is probably the most challenging aspect of this career for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Here's another good one. Your degree is a BFA. Do you think the BFA or the BA is better, and why?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to say one definitively over the other. I really don't, because I know people with BFAs and I know people with BAs that are both working on Broadway. So it's really, I think, just up to you and, the research that you do, because I think it's different for every program as well, the BA and the BFA. And so, yeah, with Michigan, I knew I wanted to get my BFA in musical theater from Michigan. And with the research I did and visiting and talking to, the faculty and the dean, that was like the track that I knew that I wanted to go down. I don't
And
think
what are the difference in those two degrees, just for those who don't really, I
to
mean, in
be
terms of coursework and in terms of time spent and
I honestly don't know enough to be able to
okay,
speak on it. So I'm not even gonna try to.
because you went the BFA route, which
I
is
did go the BFA route,
very
which
well-rounded.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, well-rounded, worked for me. I don't know enough, honestly, to speak on it to give you a good idea of both. So yeah.
Here's another really good one. We touched on this earlier about, knowing your voice type and that you're
Mhm.
staying in a niche. What about the need for being able to sing in different styles, though? How versatile do you think a performer does need to be in order to work? And should you try to just find one niche and stick to that, or is it possible to maybe do various styles and do them
No,
well?
yeah, I think it's so important to try and learn and perfect as many styles as possible. And it's always good to have the thing that is your type and, again, your niche and what you feel really good about doing. But like, I really, when I got to college, something that I really wanted to work on was like my legit singing, my soprano singing. And
Hmm.
so I worked for my freshman year really, really hard on that to make that stronger, because that wasn't necessarily my niche. And now it's one of my favorite things to do. And again, Broadway today too is so much about like it's pop rock. You see these jukebox musicals happening. Jukebox, excuse me, I can't talk. Yeah, so you see all these kind of things happening. So it's so important. I think like I have country in my book. I have pop. I have rock. I even have like the Italian arias. One of my first auditions in the city, I had to go in and sing an Italian aria, which I was like, wow, that was unexpected. Yeah, so I think it's so important to focus on as many, as many styles as you can, and just really try to, you want to be as well-rounded of a performer as you possibly can. You want to never give them a reason to say no. So the more that you can study and the more that you can perfect, the better.
Yes, and that means working with a coach that knows how to coach those styles and
Absolutely. Yeah.
perfecting those. You don't really learn that by
Yeah.
teaching
You can't,
yourself.
yeah. Again, yeah. When I got to college, it was like, I need to work on this. So
Yes.
yeah, that's so important.
Well, we're almost out of time here. Let's take one more question,
Right.
and that is, what is your dream role?
Oh my gosh. Um, that's a really good question. I've already played this role, but if this were to ever be revived on Broadway, I would love to be Elle Woods in Legally Blonde.
Such a great role.
Oh, it's the best. I mean, that musical is like one of my favorite of all time. Or maybe Glinda in Wicked is another big one for me. So yeah.
Little humor there. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, McKenzie, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a fabulous, fabulous webinar. It went by like that.
I know. It
By
was
so
awesome.
quickly.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
So McKenzie is offering to work one-on-one with some of our clients. How would our clients get in touch with you if they want to do coachings and that kind of thing?
So you guys can go to my website, McKenzieKurtz.com, and there will be a little bubble that pops up right when you get onto the website, and you can just fill in what you're interested in, and it'll email straight to me, and then I will email you, and we can talk about coaching, and we can talk about things. You can also find that on Instagram. My Instagram is just McKenzie Kurtz. Any of my social media, really, just go check it out, and it's all just McKenzie Kurtz.
Awesome. Well, hit her up, guys. It's been a fabulous hour. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much, McKenzie.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye now.